Live. Going live. We're live. All right. Welcome to Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 180, whatever. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. Gang's all here with Luff and J-Rod and Ed and Don and Gus and Gio and John and Garth and Dwan and Phil and Wayne and Jim and Mike and other people. We're going to talk slot cars today. I had a couple of suggestions for things to talk about. I think a good one to talk about is different types of tires and why one group or person may choose a particular category of tires versus a different category of tires. So I don't know if you want to claim that as a topic. I won't throw you under the bus. But the categories of tires I'm gonna delineate between silicone, any kind of silicone, hardness aside, rubbers, and I pluralize that because there is a lot of different types of rubbers, and some of them are only partially rubber, and then urethanes, which most of us are familiar with through Yellow Dog Super Tires or Paul Gage or homegrown from all around the world.
Don't forget foam.
Don't forget foam.
Foam rubber. Foam rubber.
It's difficult to categorize it on its own, I feel.
The stuff that requires glue in it. Is that the foam you're talking about?
Like the foam tires you have to cut down?
Sponge.
The stuff that you need. Yeah, but sponge rubber or the stuff that you have to put glue in for them to be at all functional? I don't use that stuff, so I don't know the difference. But the sponge rubber that I use does not require any additives.
Yeah, I mean, the foamies that are used on commercial tracks, they still put sticky stuff down. It's the same. It's the same kind, but it's a foam rubber tire. Hence, to your point about rubber, it's in the rubber category. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's still foam rubber. It's still rubber, but it's foam rubber, just like Skill Auto foam rubber tires.
Yeah.
For 132 and 124. Yeah.
And some of it needs goo and some of it doesn't need goo.
Exactly. Some of it needs goo, some of it doesn't.
Yep.
So, anybody want to take that one head on? You know, make me do it?
Well,
I'm ready.
Okay, go, Jim.
What happened in Northern California is we grew out of a track called Sidewinder, and before Sidewinder, we were doing home tracks and another commercial track that didn't last very long, but we all ran silicones. And so that group kind of evolved into a silicone tire club. Then this new Sidewinder group, even before the track was open, started racing with us. And they brought over rubber tires. And we were running on the same track, which granted is not a good thing overall to run silicones and rubber together if you have a lot of people running. But they started running with us and they were running rubber tires and they started cleaning our clocks. So we had to switch to rubber if you wanted to be competitive in that group. And then we found that we liked the way the rubber felt on the track, the way it drove around the track. To us, it was a more natural drive than silicone, which was kind of a bite and release type of thing. So that's how Northern California evolved into a rubber tire community.
So when you're racing both rubber and silicone on the same track at the same time, was the silicone losing traction because of pickups from the rubber left behind, or?
We didn't have enough people running at the time. You only had like 6 or 7 racers, so we didn't have enough to do that. But yes, I think that does and did happen. But like I said, everybody just liked the way the rubber tires felt better. You can true them. Silicones are virtually impossible to true. So that's just, I mean, for right or wrong, that's just the way it evolved in Northern California. And for whatever reason, Southern California did the same thing. So California, in all the organized racing that I know of, not counting just home tracks that race by themselves, it's all rubber tire racing. So I'm not going to try to make a stand right or wrong, but that's just kind of what happened in our area.
I think that's something for everybody to remember while they talk about what their favorite is that there is no right or wrong. It's just what choice did you make, or what choice did your group make, or whatever, and why. What was the reasoning behind that? So
hey, Jim, does the HO community still run primarily silicone, or do they run some sort of rubber tire now?
HO is 99% silicone slip-on tires. The fray racing, if you're familiar with fray, the T-Jets, that the fray community does run slip-on tires, but in the big races, or the open fray racing, which is very predominant in a lot of areas, that's silicone covered sponge. So if you want to call them coated or whatever you want to call them, some people call them dual stage, but they're a foam rubber that's been coated with silicone. So essentially it's a silicone tire that's softer.
Gotcha.
But other than that, most all the HO racing is silicone tires. When you get to the really fast HO cars, they run on rock hard tires. I don't even know if they're silicone, because they have so much traction from the magnets that they're looking for a very, very hard tire because they want the speed, and they don't, the handling is made up for in the magnets. So, but like I said, for the most part, HO is silicone slip-on tires.
You're saying then, Joe,
if you want to comment on this topic, please raise your virtual hand so that we know that you want to comment, and I won't let people talk over you. Wayne didn't raise his hand, but had something he wanted to say. Go ahead, Wayne.
it was about the hard tire that Jim mentioned. I presume that those hard tires that they're choosing are silicone ones. Is that due to a lower
ones? I'm not sure if they're silicone or just a super hard rubber. I'm not sure. It's just a harder silicone.
I used to race HO, and we allowed anything. And we had, originally people were using the stock tires, rubber tires that came on the cars, trued, not glued because they didn't need it. And then there was a move towards pre-built sponge tires, and then there was a move on from that towards urethane. And I think they still run urethane. And out of those, they never really used silicones because anyone that ever tried them, they just didn't grip so well.
Urethane, yeah.
I think the track was rubbered in, but it didn't stop it moving through the original rubbers, through foams, and then onto urethane.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that runs foam, just foam by itself in HO.
Sorry, Jim?
I don't know anybody that actually runs just straight foam without silicone coatings.
We used to be able to buy a pack, a wall hanging pack with them all in little bubbles. They were made by, I think,
AJ's brand of tires. Yeah.
And
so with those high-end HO cars, they have so much downforce with the magnets. They're going to a harder tire for speed, just the hardness of the tire, and any little compression of the tire will allow the car to get closer to the track, and a couple thousandths makes a difference. So they're running a hard tire so that compression doesn't happen, and the magnetic force is consistent all the way around the track. So it's a whole, when you get to that level of HO, which I don't do, but it's a whole different ballgame.
I think the market,
that's kind of off topic. So
yeah, the market is dominated by the type of tire that people get on their cars when they're delivered, and I think that's a reason why rubber tires are more predominant than any other type. I think you have to go pretty deep into your racing fraternity to get to even considering the other tire types. And then
I'll address that before letting Mike talk, and which is, yes, I agree partially with that, in that pretty much all stock cars come with some type of rubber. They don't come with silicone. They don't come with urethane. They come with some kind of rubber. Some of them, most of them, you might say, can be made better by sanding them or truing them and oiling them and, putting lighter fluid on or whatever. You can attain some level of acceptable grip for low or no magnet racing with a little bit of work on most of them. Obviously, there are exceptions. So on a track where you're running stock tires that have been treated or not treated or whatever the case may be, you're better off running other rubber types of tires rather than putting silicone on any of your cars. However, silicones are really popular, especially with the casual crowd, because a lot of them say, you know, what types of tires should I get? And then they're inundated by people saying this kind of silicone, that kind of silicone, just get silicones. You want silicones, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's probably mostly plastic track, you know, casual, you know, home racers. But they are very, very popular. I've noticed that they're not terribly popular. Silicones are not terribly popular in competitive club racing.
The ultimate pace you can get on a silicone, if it's easy, you know, I've tried Slotit's silicone, which is just, I think it's, they made one, and I tried it on Scalextric Sport Track that was new, and it was like better than anything that we could find that was made of rubber. But it was, it's like it works very well on virgin tracks, clean tracks, but not so well on well-established permanent plastic tracks that are rubbered.
Yeah,
and it is to get to the ultimate performance. The thing is, they just don't slide very nicely. And if you're running a low magnet car or no magnet car, then they just don't go from complete traction sliding and back to complete traction in a very fathomable or handling style of. They just don't handle very well.
That's pretty much what Jim was saying. That's what Jim was saying about
the way they feel.
Rubber stripe drive nicer. Yeah.
But I think Greg hit it right on the head. If you have a Scalextric car or track, or if you have a home track and you're buying Scalextrics or Carrera cars, one of the best things you can do is put a set of silicones on it. One of the worst things you can do is probably put a set of NSRs on it, because you're not gluing them or chewing them. And silicones, you just slip on and run them, and it's an improvement.
Yeah, especially with the magnet traction racing, which a good majority of the casual home racers do. Well, and I think that kind of falls into what you guys are saying about how nice it is to drive when you're running on rubber tires versus silicone tires. Once people start moving towards low or no magnet traction, then they find a better drive with rubber tires. But it all kind of falls back to the requirement of good performance with silicone is a clean track. You can't be running silicones on a track that had been running urethanes, because you got urethane dust all over it, which the urethane tires don't mind, but silicone tires absolutely mind. And same with rubber to a lesser extent. A well rubbered in track won't be very good for silicone tires until they've cleaned off, you know, enough residual rubber that they can, you know, get their traction back. So a fresh home plastic, you know, Scalextric, Carrera, whatever track, silicones are going to be the best traction, especially with magnets. But then it's a whole nother thing. And the probably, maybe I'll let somebody else address this. So if nobody addresses it, then I'll circle back and address it. But Mike has had his hand up for a while, and then we'll get to Ed. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I sort of made a transition from silicones to rubber through urethane. I started out with silicones, and because I tend to buy all different brands of cars, finding a silicone tire that would fit all of the different bands is a real pain in the ass. So since we were running magnet cars at the time, and especially since the distance between the chassis and the track is critical for magnetism, you can either get too much or too little. If you get too much, you kill the speed too much. So urethane were easy to true. They had reasonable traction, and was a good transition. Then I discovered that rubber actually has better traction than urethane, even with a magnet car, if you have the diameter correct. So if you've got your size of your tire set and you want it to stay there at that point, rubber tires offered traction and easier breakaway, which is critical in magnet cars, because a lot of times you will say, as Jim said, either you have traction or you don't suddenly. So they're much harder to drive, and magnet cars are harder to drive overall if you're going to maintain a significant, consistent speed. So you have to, if you're going to be on the edge, and sometimes you are on the edge, as you've seen when we've raced magnet cars, you're better off with something that has a little bit of, it's almost there. You better back off just a little bit, or you're going to fly off the track. So that sent me into rubber, and of course, once I changed to magless, then it was completely rubber because I just kept on with it, and then you go down the rabbit hole of rubber and go from there. There again, your diameter makes a huge difference because of center of gravity and handling, and and then treating rubber and all the other stuff that you do with it. And so we've transitioned to rubber for that reason. But the interesting thing was the transition from urethane to rubber gave me better handling, even with magnet cars. So I kind of ticked off my buddy that I was racing with because I switched over to rubber, didn't say anything, and then started winning consistently. So anyway, that's another story.
And that's, you made a good point about how urethane gives you the ease of truing, so you can get the diameter you want, and it has reasonable traction. Not as good as silicone on a clean track, but you can't true silicone down nearly as easily. But then you found later on that you can get better traction with rubber, and although it's trickier to true, it can be trued, so you can get that same diameter that you want to get the same center of gravity or magnetic downforce or whatever the case may be with rubber, which does offer higher grip level than urethane. And
mainly the breakaway point is easier to determine. That's the biggest thing in driving it, because you can see even with a magnet car, I would set my magnet cars up with the least amount of downforce so I get enough speed on the straight. But you could get a little tail wag and when you reach that point, you're pushing the edge. With rubber tires, it was much easier to find that point and hold it there. So you had a much more consistent drive. So, all
right. Good stuff. Ed, did you change your mind? I was about to call on you.
No, it's still there, I think.
No, you dropped your hand, but go ahead.
Oh, I don't know why it disappeared. Yeah, I took a real scientific approach. I only buy NSR cars and they come with rubber. And the second scientific statement was, I'm lazy. I got tired of cleaning tires and I like a rubber track, so I use rubber. Yeah, you could have some trouble with rubber and they come off the wheels, but I have very few cars where that's the problem. And if it is, I glue it. And so extremely scientific. Right down to the bit.
But that makes a good point, in favor of silicone, in that you can be lazy. You can just slap them on. They are what they are. You can't do any fancy tricks to them. And then there you go.
Rubber.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying laziness also applies to silicone. I mean, we're all lazy. I'm lazy. I don't like doing the stuff anyways. But
I always thought I had to clean the things on a constant basis, and I'd come back in after my track's sitting there and I'm screwing around with electronics and it's dusty and I run that car, the tires are all messed up. And so I'm spending time cleaning the track, cleaning tires. And it's like, nice thing about rubber, I put it back on, and if the what I have to do to the track is about the minimum I've experienced. So I took it to extreme laziness.
All right. Thanks for that. And Jeremy, you were next.
So I started racing with my club back in 2002, and rubber was the only thing available for us then, until Professor Motor came out with Indy grips, if you remember that brand. And the only thing it fit on was the Scalextric Indy cars, which I thought they were kind of named after the same thing. But anyway, we started racing that, and everybody realized, oh my God, these are way better. They would just stick to everything much better, silicone would. And the tracks were all clean. And then there was a huge change. Like, Indy Grip started making more and more tires for different cars, and people would find them and put them on their cars. And eventually everybody became silicone enthusiasts at that point. And the great thing about that when that happened is that people who didn't have the Huddy tire truer were competitive again. They didn't have to go buy special equipment, magic formulas. I kind of equate this debate to the guys who are still into vinyl records versus guys who just want to listen digitally. I just want to listen and go. I don't want to spend 2 hours cleaning my record and waxing it down and getting it ready. Same thing with tires. Like I just spent 6 hours prepping tires, and it just seems like such a waste of time. And then at the end, whoever does it the best is off to a huge advantage over the guys who don't. And I just feel like we've made this technological jump in silicone tires, figuring it out. We have the solution, but we can't get people to change, and we never will, obviously. But anyway, once Indie Grips got replaced by what was it? Not Quick Slicks, the other.
Super
What's
tires.
that? Super Tire.
Next.
Once Super Tire came out, that was a huge game changer because all of a sudden people were just setting records in every class. And the one thing I know that when we have we have a few tracks now. We have 11 tracks now, 12. When the track is dirty, it's left in the garage, and the guy doesn't care about it. It's brutal to run silicones. But on the other hand, there's one guy who owns a winery. He lets us race there once a year. And I mean, that's like a virgin track rally because it only gets run on once a year. And I set all kinds of records there with silicone, and I was just stuck down like it was on rails. So there's differences here, but I just feel like silicones have evened the playing field. I've got silicones on cars from when they first got them, the super tires from 10, 12 years ago, that perform just as good today as they did when I first got them. And that's to me, it just seems like it's insane not to switch. I understand that you got to go with what your club wants, but once you put a pair of silicones on, you got a metal wheel, there's no truing, and they're good for 10, 20 years. It's the greatest thing ever.
I was just about to say that.
Plastic wheels, no, you can have a lumpy plastic wheel. That's true.
Exactly. So most of my racing and most of my personal enjoyment is stock, and most of the cars are, so it's really not an option for non-magnet on plastic wheels because of how hard it is to true, which is why.
So we used to run all plastic wheels as well. I mean, you had to true your plastic wheel and get it, make sure it was round, and that was a pain because sometimes Scale Electric will put a wheel on it and be wonky, and you'd be like, "Well, I'm screwed." That is true.
Yeah,
but
and the club
it's a trade-off.
Now, back in the good old days, they would have those kind of situations. They raced mostly Scale Electric cars, especially before all the slotted and such came around. Yeah. So you have guys that had a deeper pocket, buying lots of cars just to get a rear and a front that weren't
just buying more axles that are already with wheels on it, and
So true. I mean that's the main reason I don't like. I remember having some silicone tires early on, and they have good grip, but then I'm like, once I learned about how tire truing benefits and not using traction magnets and all that stuff, I'm like, well, you can't. You pretty much got to change to metal wheels or change the tire types. I went tire types. But yeah, fantastic points from Jeremy. Go ahead, John.
Well, I'm not the sort of racing guy that you folks are, but I know for our track, and this we sort of did this out of necessity because I had a lot of cars that sat on the shelf, and quite frankly, the rubber perished. So I would have to make my own tires, and I think I've shown this before, but making your own urethane tires is really not that difficult. And the real benefit is that you can make as many as you want, you never run out, and they grip quite nicely. So, and as long as you have a whole bunch, you can, as you can tell, I've been casting lately, and these are the Ninco tires that I'm doing for our little proxy race, and they just pop right out, and there they are on the wheel that everyone's getting, and they're great for our painted Carrera track. And again, they don't perish. You can keep them on the car as long as you want. But especially with, I don't know if you folks have experienced the wonderful degenerating fly rear tire.
Carrera.
Yeah, exactly. And those were some of the first molds that I made, again, out of necessity. And quite frankly, I think the car drove better than even with the stock fly tires when they were good. So. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of urethane because they're just, you can make them yourself.
And and I'm trying to figure out how to say this nicely. I'm sure your urethane tires are fantastic. I have had urethane tires that did go bad, and I'm sure that's just because they did not use the right proportions of whatever they're mixing, or I don't know. I don't do urethane, so I don't know.
Yeah, most urethanes are like a 50-50 mix by volume, so you don't have to weigh the stuff. It's not like silicone.
So maybe they just eyeballed it or something when they poured that back. I don't know, but it's super rare. And honestly, I can only think of one set of tires that a set of urethanes that went off. Every other one has been fantastic.
So Greg, if you don't mind, how did they go off? Did they just melt, or did they break?
They kind of did the I don't know, released some kind of chemical or stuff. They just kind of got soft and sticky.
So they kind of seeped something, right? It oozed something.
I mean, it's been several years since I got rid of them. So, but yeah, my recollection, though hazy as it may be, was that they kind of did what Carrera tires do, but I know for sure it wasn't a batch of Carrera tires. It was silicone, or not silicone, but urethane tires. That put me on urethanes for a while, because I was like, if this is going to happen, then I don't want urethanes.
They will go off if they're subjected to heat and over time. I'm like John and make quite a few urethanes, and I just dragged out some old proxy cars from about 4 or 5 years ago last night, and the tyres are starting to go gel-like on them. But they're in a shed here that's subject to 35, 40 degrees Celsius at times. So heat will certainly kill them. Yeah.
Well, and also depends on the shore strength as well, Phil. What shore were you casting? Do you know?
35 to 40, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do all the time, is 40 shore. It seems to be a great compromise.
I run 30s a little bit too soft, so I mix it and get 35 for the little VR AA Tasman type cars, open wheelers in particular.
Now, in defense of rubber tires, the rubber tires that lasted the longest on our shelf cars were actually from Ninco. Those seem to be pretty good.
Yeah, the Ninco Classic. Yep.
Yeah.
Pro slots are good too.
Pro slot, yeah.
The old pro slots, those rubbers, I still got those. They still run fine.
The urethanes we have here, one of the local brands, they tend to go off with light as well.
Yeah.
They start going red.
Light, like exposed to sunlight, or?
Yeah, just any light. If you leave it on the car on the shelf, or in the shed, as Phil said.
Wow.
They lose their colour. They go red and go a bit gooey.
Yeah.
I've noticed the color change, but only have had that one instance of them going gooey or whatever.
Wow, I'm so glad I'm in a dark basement. That's awesome.
Well, I've still got some here in the bag. I'll keep them in a what do you call it, a takeaway food container, locked up in a cupboard, and they're still okay. Some of them are 11 years old, but there's others that go off very quickly.
All right, let's hear from Brian before we close things up.
All right, now I kind of went the opposite of what Mike did. When I had my Scale Electrics track, when I was replacing tires, I went urethane, and for me it was the ease of sanding, and I didn't really know much about rubber tires. So I mean, my truing tires was a piece of sandpaper on a flat block of wood, that I'd put some electricity to, and so I was doing the truing by hand. With few exceptions, I guess some of the slotted cars I was getting probably had rubber tires on them, though they did seem to true pretty easy. So I don't know what the compounds were, but when I replaced my track this summer with the Scale Auto, I decided I went silicone. So everything I'm buying now, I'm in the process of anything I run on a consistent basis. So all my, what I'll call performance cars, NSR, Scale Autos, Sideways, my own chassis, silicone tires. I've been very happy with them. I use plastic wheels in a lot of my own chassis, but I buy slottets, which I have found to be pretty good. I might have to nick off a piece of flashing here and there, but for the most part, they're consistently round. So I haven't had an issue. And I've also started running some Professor Motor aluminum wheels on my own chassis that I've been very, very happy with. So, but I started with a fresh track, new track. So it's maybe seen a little urethane and a little rubber, you know, because I picked up some NSRs, you know, I'll try them out of the box, but 99% of what I'm running now is silicone. Now, I will disagree somewhat. When the tires are clean, say the first half a dozen laps, the car does not slide, which is a good thing. It's quick. It's very quick. But after 6 to 10 laps, you start to get a little slide as the tires get a little dirty. Now, I'm sure it's not as smooth or quite as controllable as rubber, but it is there, and you can pull yourself out of it. You know, you can modulate the throttle and so forth. But I like the fact that I don't have to mess with them. I realize rubber is probably an overall better choice, but I'm not the kind of guy who can sit there for an hour truing a set of rubber tires, dropping, you know, drops of alcohol on them, listening to RPM changes or monitoring amp draw. I'm sorry, that ain't me. So the silicone stuff works out great for me. Been very happy with it. Again, I'm not a competitive racer. I'm a casual home racer. So for me, it works great. So I guess it depends on what you're doing. But in my case, I got new track, high grip new track, and the silicones are just easy to deal with. One thing I did find very attractive about rubber is it tends to be about the least expensive. Most of the time when I'm buying silicones, you get a pair, you know. Rubber, most of the NSR rubber comes in 4-packs of things. So price wise, rubber in my case is almost half the price. So yeah, so that's all I have.
Does anyone regularly race on foam tires anywhere?
Yeah, we race on foam rubber.
On your 32 plastic chassis?
Yeah, on plastic and wood. Yeah. Ed, what were you going to say?
What's life like with those? Really spoke
I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a minute, Wayne. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't see
so who the manufacturers of silicon tires?
What was that?
Who's the manufacturer of silicon tires?
There's Quick Slicks, Super Tires. There's Slotted. There's several brands.
Quick Slicks is probably the most predominant.
It's always nice to say that there's several, but it's hours later that I figure out who the several are.
I mean, some of them have come and gone, like Indie Grips. I don't think are still actively creating new tires.
Yeah, I'm just trying to limit it to what's available.
Yeah, Super Tires had a hiatus, but I think they're back to being produced. Quick Slicks as well, I believe.
Yeah,
but I don't shop silicone. Jeremy, do you know any other actively manufactured silicone?
No, those are the only 3 I know right now. Are Slotted.
Yeah, I've tried the
Super Tires. Max Tracks, I don't think he's making those
is...
anymore. They're made off the old Indie Grip molds with a new compound, but I mean, Garth might know. He knows Oliver.
You guys ever find silicones on eBay?
I see ads for tires called gel claws.
Those are urethanes, I think.
Yeah, those are old.
Yeah, those are very popular, particularly in 143rd cars. And some people think they're silicone, but they're not. They're made. I don't even know what it's called, but it's the same rubber compound that is used for windshield seals. So they're kind of gummy, sort of, you know.
Yeah.
You can true them, but they're kind of sort of like a soft silicone when you're true them, but they're very popular in 143rd cars.
No.
That's what we coat the HO tires with, is that kind of silicone.
Flowable silicone, and then spin it off.
Yeah, flowable silicone.
Yeah. So to respond to Wayne's question, and I'll assume that the rest of the question is, you know, what do you do? How do you like it? What do you drive on? Blah, blah, blah. We use primarily Scale Auto foam rubber tires. We use them for both 132 and 124th, primarily in my club 132. We've used yellows and whites, which are the 2 softest of the 3 compounds. We don't use reds very much. We usually allow the Scale Auto tire cleaner, which is a naphtha-based tire cleaner, so a softener, not a glue. I've found that the Nivea blue Blue Label, blue bottle container, which is based on mineral oil, is a good alternative to the Scale Auto tire cleaner, because no matter how sparingly I applied the Scale Auto tire cleaner, before the end of the series of 8 races, my foam rubber was coming off the rim because the naphtha-based cleaner attacked the glue that held the foam to the rim. But the Nivea doesn't do that, so I use that for foam rubber tires from now on. The grip is fantastic. That if you as long as you don't forget to put whatever you're going to put on it, whether it's the Scale Auto cleaner or your Nivea, the grip is fantastic on all kinds of plastic, all kinds of wood tracks. It's always fantastic. They drive really nice.
The foam tires I've used some Scale Autos. I've used some with a green ring around them, and I think a blue one as well. Anyway,
blues are super hard, like for front tires.
Well, I've used them on Ninco surfaces, which are quite abrasive.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But the performance of them is very good, even though they are quite firm. And the longevity is a lot longer than I expected them to be. It's not infinite, don't get me wrong. They do experience wear. But they are the type of tyre that goes from grip to slide back to grip without any jerks.
Yeah.
They are very smooth to ride on.
Yeah. So moving out of this topic, I'm going to say some things that may be debatable. Your miles may vary, in my honest opinion, but basically, your flow chart to tire purchasing decision making is: do you want to race with other people in your area? If so, talk to them. What are they racing with? Get whatever they're racing with. If the answer is no, do you want to race or replace all your plastic wheels with metal wheels? If yes, go silicone. They last forever. Put them on metal wheels. You don't need to true them. You can't do anything fancy to them. You might be cleaning them a little bit more to get good grip back if you haven't raced on your track for days or weeks or whatever the case may be. But once your track and tires are clean, go to town. If you don't want to replace all your plastic wheels with metal ones, and you don't want to race only cars with metal wheels, slot it in MR slot car and all that. If you got Scalextric cars, you got Carrera cars, you got SCX and Ninco and all those with plastic wheels, you're probably going to want to true the tires. If you, let me back up a little bit. If you want to continue racing with magnet traction, more power to you. The trueness of your tires and wheels probably doesn't matter much. You can probably stick with the stock tires and not worry about it. Silicone, fine. Just stick them on, no problem. If you're going to go reduced or no magnets and plastic wheels, you're going to want something that you can true the wobble out of. Urethane is super, super easy to true. You pretty much can't do any magic to them other than you can, in fact, use isopropyl alcohol to give them a more slick, sticky surface. Just don't do that too much or they'll degrade. Or various rubbers. Tons of different rubbers out there. Most of them can be trued. Some of them take a little bit more work and TLC during the truing process, as mentioned, but they can all be trued. You can turn a slightly wobbly tire. If you can see the wobble when it's turning slowly, don't bother. But if you can only feel the wobble when you touch it with your finger while it's spinning around or whatever, then you can true that out of it just fine with pretty much any kind of rubber. Before you true urethane or rubber, you want to glue it to the rim, because if it shifts at any point during or after your truing process, your true just got even worse than it was before you started. Rubber and urethane do have the possibility of degrading over time. Some kind of rubbers can get hard or melt, and some kind of urethanes, if they're poured wrong or whatever the case may be, can do their thing. You might have to replace them. Whereas silicone, you pretty much are never going to have to replace them until you race with a club that says no silicones. So that's why I started with, are you going to race with other people? Race what they race. So let us switch over to show and tell. If you have any slot car related thing you want to show and or tell about, now is the time to put up your virtual hand so I remember to call on you. And as a reminder to everybody out there, we want to try to start the show off with a topic of discussion, like we just did. So if you have an idea for a topic of discussion, put it in the comments. If you're live on YouTube now, maybe wait until we don't go live, because I'll probably not catch those comments. So comment in forums or wherever you see this video, or in the actual YouTube comments, not the live chat, your idea or suggestion for a topic to start off with in a future chat, and we'll hopefully pull that at some point. Okay, now doing show and tell. I think I remember. I don't remember whose hand went up first, but first on my screen is Brian. Go ahead.
All right. So over the last couple of weeks, I've been showing you guys some chassis work I've been doing, dealing with the piano wire, using it as a suspension system. Well, last week I showed you this one. So what I had done is I went from a 4-point pod and I designed a 3-point pod, and it works nice. So, but one of the things I've always found with pods is one of the problems I have is when you loosen the pod, you change your ride height. And I don't know if that's a big issue for all of you, but in some cases, especially with my bodies, I find out I'll end up dragging things sometimes when I do that. So I gave that some thought and came up with this chassis. Anybody notice anything significantly different here?
Your springs are going the other way?
Nope, springs are the same. It all has to do with the pod.
It's not connected to the back.
Exactly. That pod is held in place with one. Oop, what did I just do?
You're fine.
Yep. No, I touched something. My screen went away. That pod is held in place with exactly one screw. And what I did is I created pins in the back, so the chassis itself actually rides on top of the pod instead of the pod riding on the chassis. Now, those screw holes you see there, I originally put them in there thinking, well, you could be able to adjust your chassis height. You could lower it if you needed to. But I kind of thinking that's probably an unnecessary thing, and I think I'm going to get rid of those in the next one. I really don't think you need them. Now, surprisingly enough, very, very little slop in this chassis or in the pod. I've got about 0.15 clearance on either side of those pins. You can see there's plenty of movement there. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, but all the chassis float or pod float you could possibly want. Very, very little front to back movement, though there is some, and very, very little side to side movement on it.
So if you, sorry to interrupt, Brian. If you drove screws in through the top of those two screw holes, right, you'd be pushing the back of the pod down.
Correct.
And the chassis would go up.
Up, right. And that's why I'm saying I'm not sure that's something that you would really need to do, because once you got your ride height set. So I could literally, now on the new one, a pod I was doing, I was putting adjusting screws on the pod to limit the side to side. To a large degree, you can do that with just the front screw. You tighten it up, and it will somewhat limit it. But I was going to add adjustment screws there so you could adjust how much float you actually had. From a performance standpoint, I can't see really any difference between the two. Now, granted, these are slightly different configurations. Obviously, with a short can, this one's got plastic wheels. This is a long can with aluminum wheels. There's 15 grams difference between the two cars, which is about the same amount of difference there is in weight between a short can and a long can. I weighed it shortly. This one weighs in at 60 grams as it sits. This one sits in at 45 grams as it sits. So again, I don't know. One thing, other benefit is it's sure easy to set up. You don't have to worry about having 4 screws turned out equally. You got one screw to mess with. It floats just as easily as the other one does. The pins I created, I did them in a trapezoid shape in a square hole. So since it's twisting, you're not scraping the sides. but it centers right back up as soon as it goes.
Have you tried them with bodies on yet?
I've run the red one with a body. I haven't run this one with a body yet. The tension is the same. I mean, the springs and everything, the rest of the chassis is exactly the same. And actually, the way I have this set up right now, I don't know if you can tell, but if you go up, you see that the spring doesn't move at all. But as soon as you go down, you can see that bar start to move. Try and do it in such a way that you can see it.
Yeah, because you got it hitting the set screw.
Now, if you go down, you can see the bar moves. But up, it does not. So there's no upward tension on this right now. I could add it with the set screws, but as of right now, I haven't. I have some thinner piano wire coming, should be here tomorrow, that I'm going to play with. And try maybe having some tension on that and see how it does. But so far they run just fine. Without a body, it's within 0.02 of a second of that NSR Corvette. Now, granted, the body's obviously going to add some time to that, but performance so far pretty good. And again, the idea that your ride height never changes. You could lock down the pod solid, wouldn't change. You can make it as loose as possible, wouldn't change. And one screw to mess with. So that's where I'm at. That's it.
Anybody got any questions for Brian? Garth has some.
Yeah. This is the material that the chassis is made out of.
I'm going with PLA. What's that?
Yeah, they are PLA, though I am the pod, I'm looking at something else because I've been using press-in bushings and stuff. And when you're doing prototyping, pulling them in and out, especially if you're gluing them, a mess. So I did another chassis that will use snap-in bushings, and I'm printing it in PETG. Actually, it's sitting up on the printer right now. It finished just as the show started. So I'm hoping that'll be a little bit more flexible to let me take bushings in and out without snapping them. Now, Jeremy had told me there's some new flexible PLA out there as well that I might experiment with, but I've got the PETG on hand, so I'm going to give that a go.
Yeah, PETG is much less likely to snap when you're snapping in bushings and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll probably work out. All right, good stuff, Brian. Thanks for sharing. And next up, Lenny. Sorry,
guys. How are you? I'll just throw in some photos. Where are we? Yeah. Sorry, my computer's a bit slow at the moment. Okay, one of the guys turned up at the 500 on the last weekend, and he does 24 scale old timer type stuff as well. So this is the pre-war Delahaye Grand Prix car he built up. The chassis is the body is actually carved out of balsa wood, and he's built his own chassis for it as well. I think it's got an open frame motor in it, like an old Rebel or something like that, or a trade ship type motor. And there's the chassis underneath for it. So it goes around quite well. He gave it a run. You see the back wheels have got drum brakes on them. He actually machined them up himself on his home lathe. So yeah. So there's the underneath of it. And the second car he turned up with was this Elfin 600. So Elfin's a South Australian brand or mark of racing and sports cars. It's no longer around now; it's defunct. But it's the Elfin 600 Formula 2 car. So that once again, that's a balsa wood carved bodywork, and there's the chassis for it. He's actually got a BRM pink can motor in that one. So it's all self-built. The chassis is built up himself. I think he's machined the front wheels himself. But they go around quite well. I did take some video, but it didn't turn out very well. So that's it for me for show and tell. So I'll get out your way. I assume everybody can see that.
So you using urethane tires on the back?
Yeah, he's using MJK. He doesn't race them. We don't race them at my place. They're 124 scale. We're a 32nd scale group. He just turned up with them just to show them off and give them a little run on the track. So they've got MJK brand urethanes, I believe.
That's your down under urethane maker, right?
Yeah. You can't go anywhere in Australia without MJK tyres turning up somewhere. So for better or worse, I guess. So yep.
Nice.
So I'll stop the share now and hand over to someone else. Oh, any questions?
It's nice to see somebody who actually looks like he's scratch built, real scratch building. Really kind of cool.
Yeah, he's built his own chassis and he's actually carved his own bodies as well out of a lump of balsa wood.
Now, did the Elvin have a drop arm as well?
Yeah. Oh, yes, it did. And I'll get it back up. I'm not sure why, but
maybe just did that out of force of habit.
Yeah, Max goes back quite a long way. He goes back to the 60s. So yeah, so it's all self-built. But there is a few of us still around that do scratch build cars. So, but not many in Adelaide. I've got a job to build a couple of Tasman cars up over Christmas for some people for our Tasman Proxy series that I'm hoping to revive this year. But more on that later, I guess. Yeah, so yeah, the motor's massive. It's got one of those pink can VRMs out of it, the Group C's.
Wow. Yep. From your M group, the 124th Group C. Oh, it's a 124th car. That makes sense.
Yeah. All right, I'll stop the share now.
Stuff. All right, thanks for sharing, sir. And John,
right.
you're up.
We've got a bit more in Club Corner, but I'll bore you with that later.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, sorry. I just it's kind of a show and tell tip thing. I've actually been casting a wee bit as of late, and one of the things that I try not to do is waste resin. So I always have extra molds around, usually a figure, so that I take the last resin on the pot and try and make something out of it. And what happens sometimes though is you just don't quite have enough to get a complete figure, and you get these cavities, right? It's not really a bubble as much as it just wasn't enough resin to fill the mold. Interesting spot to have a cavity. Now here's something that I learned that I'd really like to pass on with resin. When usually I would take these and just basically, scavenge parts. However, using good old-fashioned baking soda and your favorite type of super glue, you can actually fill the void, and it works. Like, I can't get over this. So you take a pipette and fill the void with baking soda. That's a really interesting photo, isn't it? And there you go. So there the void is filled with baking soda, just to show you, and get it to the roughly the shape that you want. Take your favorite super glue, put a blob on it, and I know this doesn't show it, but you see it's kind of glowing. It creates this sort of clear gel that then hardens, and it's filled the void. It's done. It's amazing. It really works.
And it's sandable. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can carve it, you can sand it. Yeah, absolutely, it really works. So I thought I had a couple of because that happens with body shells sometimes. Sometimes the casting gods just aren't with you, and so I tried it with this Sprite body that had this little sort of blemish over here, and it was right through the body. So I put a piece of masking tape on the other side just to stop the baking soda from going through. And as you can see, boom, gone.
So are you going to start molding with baking soda then, John?
Well, you know what? But to your point, this way at least nothing really gets. Because honestly, I would have taken this body and just chucked it, just for that little blemish. And now it's fine. Sand it up a little bit, and it's a usable body. So I imagine that sometimes when you buy a resin part from some old fool like me, and they have a little bit of if you find a bubble in it, it's really, really easy to mend. So just thought I'd pass that along.
I mean, the whole baking soda, the whole pretty much anything plus super glue is like a meme at this point in time. You go on Facebook, you see people posting repair videos of just the most random stuff that they pack something in and then super glue it and then file it down and then it's magically repaired.
Well, I'm really surprised at how the baking soda, like like the super glue goes right through the baking soda, fills the void completely. Because I would expect it just sitting on top. No, it goes right through and boom, it's done. And unlike just plain super glue, you can actually then shape it if need be.
There's actually a commercial product called Cubond, which comes with 2 different coloured powders and a tube of some sort of super glue, and they sell it to a lot of the motorbike guys for repairing their plastics. And that's the same type of thing. Yeah.
Pretty much any fine.
I don't know how much. I was gonna say I don't know how much it costs, but you can do a lot of hole filling with like a $2 box of baking soda.
It's a lot cheaper than Cubond, I can tell you, John.
A $2 box of baking soda and a $2 bottle of super cheap super glue.
And that's Canadian, folks, not real money. There you go.
Yeah, don't use cotton.
Don't use cotton. Oh, what happens with cotton?
It creates heat, excessive heat.
Burns.
Fine powder such as baking soda. All right, great tip, John. Thank you very much. And Mr. Clark, go ahead.
Oh, that's you okay. Well, it's now in the holiday seasons and time for gifting and things like that. So I have a friend that's been coming by recently that shown an interest in slot carring at my home. So I've decided to go ahead and I will be surprising him with a
Hold on, Dewan just invented a new verb, slot carring.
He doesn't watch this show, does he? Because now he's getting spoiled by by your gift here.
He doesn't watch the show.
Okay, good.
But anyway, I probably have half a dozen of these Gran Turismo sets, and this was one that I started with. The box needed a little work, but this is the track that I was starting with, and the typical routine. This is how it cleans up a little bit. And I started using, I used these little burgundy 3M scouring pads, and I saw Boone's Slot Car Garage had a version of the scouring pad that he put on his rotary tool. And I scrounged around and I finally found some available and everything. And I tried putting on my rotary tool, but it just, it wasn't working the way I wanted to work because the RPM on the rotary tool was just too high, and it was causing the plastic around the rails to. I could smell rubber. Let's put it that way. So I didn't want to go that route. So I went tried and proven way, and using my hand tool. I use this little detail brush and the burgundy scouring pads, along with that Detox It. That's a wonderful tool that cuts down at least 1/3 of the time it normally takes. And so this is what he's going to be getting. I did give him some new cars. Brand new fly cars that I have still sealed up, never been used, etc. Gift that to him. They really look good, and they got magnets in them, and so he should be happy with that. So this will be the set that we'll be getting for the holidays.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I mean, not only the gift itself, but the work that you put in it to bring it back to like new condition and ready to race. Basically, that's awesome.
Yep.
Aww. All right. Thank you for sharing, Dewan. And Wayne, you've got your hand up. What's up?
I've put my phone in the chat once again so that I can share some photographs I took. Screen. Start. Gallery. Okay, I received this in the mail this week.
That's not Una's.
It is. You're well
Ooh,
recognized.
aren't you lucky?
I put that there and didn't tell you what it was on purpose, just in case anyone noticed or recognized it. Yes, it's all one piece. The interesting thing, that's the interesting thing. It's all one piece.
You got to pull the chassis out of the body and then get rid of all the supports and stuff, or what?
Can you see in the rear wheel arches is the rear wheel?
That's the way to get that's the way to do an SLS print. Yeah.
Can you see the motor pod through that ventilation hole?
That's awesome.
And if you look inside that front window, you can see two guides.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll show you another picture.
Yep.
There they are. And those things there, I understand, must, by presumption anyway, I haven't chatted with Jonah yet, but those must be spring cups that hold the top and bottoms of the coil spring.
Yep.
You can see the motor pod is in place. And when you get a look at the underside, oh, there's the rear wing in the rear arch. Motor pod is already there. You'll see that he's got some flex cuts in the chassis, and the motor pod sits entirely above the chassis except for that part with the motor in, which is flush with the bottom, and it's all in place.
But you've got to get your nippers out and separate things in order to.
And as yet I haven't done that. It's still in one piece. He also sent these bits. You can see an interior tray there with no drivers. Those things at the far right are wing supports. They are laser cut from sheet rubber. So are those other black pieces, but I don't know what they are yet. I've yet to find out.
I'm thinking they're
like dive planes.
They do look like dive planes. That's correct. May very well be, because this car does have them. There's some wing mirrors. There's some door handles there. There's some more dive planes, or look like dive planes.
So you can do rubberized or regular dive planes, probably.
Mm-hmm. There's that piece of Lexan looks like a front grille to go in the aperture. I don't yet know what those three rectangle or those three strange top left, those pieces up there. I don't know what those are.
Dashboard?
Not sure. Could be. And there are windows, headlight lenses, and I believe that piece there is the rear tail, is the tail lights. I believe that might very well be the tail lights. And this was a photo I took and shared with Yona, because I thought those two verticals should be connected to that front splitter. You can see how flexible this body shell is. And I expressed my concern for the durability, resilience, shall we say, of the body shell, because this is clearly intended to have a piece of Lexan glued in. And I thought perhaps it all ought to be one piece. And he sent back a photograph that reminded me of something he showed us in the chat. And that was the photograph he took of a crash test on that body shell. And you can see how it reacted. It suffered no damage whatsoever. And I can confirm that compared to any ABS body shell I've got, this one is far, far more flexible, resilient. I haven't taken it apart yet, so I don't know how much it weighs. But I think it's going to be extremely light. It's obviously very, very flexible. And I think that adds to its resilience compared to an ABS body. And those are, I think, all the photographs I took. Yes, they are. So
that whole is created out of a single 3D print?
That whole thing.
The body was, yeah.
Yeah, the body chassis, body parts guide, all in one print. Yeah.
Yeah, the front of the chassis does actually go up a little as well. If you can see, there are some what look like layer lines to me, but I've run my finger across there, and the front of the chassis does actually go up a little, which may have some benefits. What else was I going to show you? Oh, I haven't taken a great photograph of it. Yes, I have. Can you see the roll cage?
Mm-hmm.
The roll cage is complete. And you see it in the front there? And it's already in the body shell. And I think that's fantastic because it's not part of the interior, it's part of the body shell. And it's just not going to come off. There's just no need to remove it. It's printed there and it can just stay there.
Yeah, but how easy is it going to be to put all the glass in?
I don't know until I get there.
I mean, maybe the windshield and side glass and rear glass, but those quarter panel.
The rear quarter panel.
Yeah.
They might go in behind the cage. I'm not sure, but I'd like to leave it there because if I took it, I did speak to you about. I mean, a couple of messages have gone back and forth and I spoke, but I mentioned how impressed I was with the fact that he managed to manufacture the body shell with the roll cage, and he said it's actually intended to come out. And I thought, well, if I take it out, I don't really know how I'm best going to be able to reaffix it because it's nylon, and I don't know what the correct glue for nylon would be. I know that super glue doesn't work very well with nylon, does it?
E6000.
Oh, that's the gummy glue that comes out clear and just gets up firm.
Right.
But you haven't dismantled that yet, right?
That's correct.
Like chassis still, so you might discover some things that will make things more apparent once you start pulling those parts apart.
Exactly.
That's awesome, dude.
Well, I have as many questions. I mean, if anyone has any questions, fire away. But I have as many. I mean, the obvious one to me is how much do all the parts weigh?
Well, did he build all that like in-house, or did he have it sent out? And because like he vacuum formed some stuff there, he 3D printed some stuff, he's laser cut. Like he's killing me.
He's killing it. Yeah. I'm thinking the vac form stuff he did. I'm thinking he must have done the vac form.
I think he's doing the vac forming at home. I know he's doing
probably the laser cut rubber.
The design and the fusion in-house, but he's having it manufactured elsewhere, much like the way that Garth's having guides and wheels and things like that made. And the laser cut rubber, it's well within your capability, isn't it?
That looked like it might have been thin enough to do on a Cricut.
Yeah.
The little blade cutter things. But
okay.
Yeah,
he does use laser cutter. It's a shame he's not in the chat again tonight. I actually sent a message.
I was just going to say, is he here? Is he here? He'd have said something by now.
It'd be great for him to come back and give us some more feedback.
I have a feeling he'll be here next week.
Yeah, on the earlier one. But I have got it. I've got it. I mean, as you know, over here in the UK, it's like 1 a.m. right now. But I have got it. And I've got my scales, and I've got my tools, and I've got my vernier caliper. And I thought, I might even dig into it whilst we're on the chat. And if I find anything out, I'll let you know.
All righty. Anybody got any questions for Wayne on Una's print? I think we're probably just going to wait until you start taking that apart and doing your weigh-in. We'll find out.
Okie dokie.
All righty. So it looks like we're ready to move on to Club Corner, unless anybody else has any show and tell they want to get in on the last minute. Otherwise, raise your virtual hand for Club Corner, and we'll make sure we talk about whatever you want to talk about. Oh, Mike, you're doing something.
I'm waving my hand. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Club Corner, Mike.
I've got the not Club Corner.
Okay.
I've got a show and tell. So I'm going to have to switch the camera and bear with me for a minute.
You didn't put all those adapters in already, did you?
Yep, I did.
Wow.
I just finished the last ones today. So excuse the mess, but you can see in the back there's one of them that's gone in. And then I just put this one in. This is the short one. The
original,
the shorter adapters that go in for 2 straights. And then there's, of course, this one. And then at the connection to the power base, and at the other end of the pit lane. So it's I'm hoping to be able to have it up and running next week and a little bit cleaned up so that I can race on it. I haven't put the cars on it yet to check it out, but the one thing I will say is that working with that really fine copper tape is a real pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And it tears really, really easily. So if anybody's going to do that, for those that are, getting the adapters for it, do it in situ, in place, rather than trying to assemble it and then put it in. Because if you bend it the slightest little bit, it cracks. So you can see maybe. Go ahead.
Do you remember the mill thickness of that tape? Or do you
No, I don't. Hang on. Well, it doesn't say. It doesn't say. I'll get back to you on that.
But so I'm definitely curious about the thickness of what you got and whether or not it's the electrically conductive adhesive is available in a thicker mill, though, because one mill is usually what we recommend for routed tracks, and it does not tear so easy. But
yeah, I'm sure this is less than a half a mil.
Yeah, it seems like foil, not
right, exactly.
Like foil. Yeah, so probably less than ideal. So hopefully the electrically conductive adhesive stuff is available in 1 mil. But Johnny designed it so that you could do a wired connection underneath if you wanted to. So you could run a thicker mill non-conductive adhesive and then do wire bridges underneath if you wanted to.
Yeah. And there's also one of the new power bases I got.
Is it working?
I scammed to. Well, they both work so far, yes. And I tested them. I'll switch around here. I tested them at 132 slot, and they worked really well. It did not cure my problem. So
I mean, it cured the problem of the controller port that stopped working.
Right, it can cure that problem, but it didn't cure the other one. So I'll segue into Club Corner, and I actually have photos of the here we go, share content of the winners. If I can get them up.
You did winners pictures, awesome.
Okay.
Can't help you from this end, buddy.
Okay.
Sorry.
This was the last race with Scale Auto and NSR Formula Ones, and I ended up in a situation similar to what happened with Little Nemo a while ago, in that I chased Rat Bastard down and was on his tail quite a while and couldn't pass him. And there's a difference between the Scale Auto motor is 500 RPMs different than the NSR motor. That was the difference. It was really frustrating. It was like being down like 5 horsepower or something like that, and I couldn't quite make up the difference. So that was fun. And then we did Can-Ams. We did Thunder Slot Can-Ams. Shiggy finished first in that one, and I was tailing him a lot. God, those things are so nice to drive. Running them, we run them at the track. I think the voltage is 11.5, and they're just sweethearts to run. With the G25 tires on them, they're really nice. The only thing I will say is that all of those have NSR 20,000 motors in them. I put those all in there when I didn't have the capability or the knowledge to reduce the voltage in the system. So they're a little lower power than the original motor that's in it. Not much though, but they could take the power easily if you wanted to leave them in there. And I'm considering, remotoring them all and going from there, but we'll see what happens. We've also gotten better as far as racing magless, and it's really close. All of these are really close races. We're qualifying within a tenth or tenth and a half between the three of us, with three different cars, and these cars are chosen by lot. We hide one of us will put the cars in a row and hide it, and then you pick from 1, 2, or 3, and then the second person will rearrange it, and we'll choose in order of the guy who finished last picks first, so he has the most choice. And so it's random. It's totally random who gets what car, and but it's pretty equal, and it's really, really a lot of fun. And then we did Trans Ams, and this was a case where the last shall be first. I qualified with the Barracuda last and finished first. And Garth, there's a reference to Barracudas finishing last when I qualified. So there's a reference in the video. I don't know if you saw it yet, but it's there. But I did end up on a winner on that one, so I felt pretty good about that. And it was, once again, it was pretty close, not quite as close to that one. I did a little BOP because that balance of performance, because that one is significantly slower than the other two, and that brought it up enough. And it was seesawing back and forth with fuel, and the extra burn rate that I got out of the fuel was the difference, but it wasn't a lot, and I had to work at it. I really had to work at it to do it. So it was good fun. Okay, that's me.
Not surprised that Javelin came in behind us. Or it's just narrow.
Well, he led a good portion of it.
Really?
Yeah. The Javelin is this one is not that slow, and the Challenger and the Barracuda are not that great a car because they're limited by the narrowness of the rear, getting tires in there. Yeah. So that makes a difference there. So at any rate, they were pretty even and pretty fun. And Shiggy ran the Javelin because it was his car. He doesn't have a lot of cars, so he wanted to run his car because we had a class that he could run. So that was his choice. And Mike and I I picked the other two cars because they were comparable to his Javelin in speed. So, and I forgot about, I tried a live stream. I don't know if anybody saw it. Well, actually, I know that one of my buddies saw it and Don saw it.
Nice. But
I ran out of battery with my second iPad as I was doing it. It was, I guess I'll have to figure this out. And John, before you go away today, I want to talk to you about cameras. So,
okay, I wonder now that all of a sudden it quit.
Yeah, the batteries on. Yeah, that's a whole topic.
Sorry about that.
We'll figure it out. All right, thanks, Mike.
Well, it was my first try.
Oh yeah, it happens. No big deal. Go ahead, Dewan.
Oh, okay. Well, this weekend they actually had the NSR Western Challenge, I think that's what it's called, or something like that, at Electric Dreams, and I had no intentions whatsoever of participating in that.
Hey, I was cheering you on. Check the replay in the chat. I was like cheering you on there, brother.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, I had to make a trip down to LA, just ironically, and I said, well, you know what? Might as well just get a little experience while I'm down here. I went and I had a Muscler that I had bought a year ago, never took it out of its box, never put it on the track, never did anything. But so I took that down there, but I had to replace the motor pod and all that stuff. So I got down there Thursday and went through the routine of getting all the parts and everything to make it, bring it up to snuff and meet the criteria of the event. And didn't get to race it. I didn't get to put it on the track until I worked on it all Thursday night, and Friday was the first morning of practice. And so I put it on the track. It's a nice little car and everything. And we had 41 racers that participated. Well, 41 people that signed up. Let's put it that way. And I think it was a total of 38 participating racers. Let me see if I have the folks here. And so just ironically, yeah, this is the group picture. Someone was asking where was Dennis. I guess Dennis was there, but apparently he didn't make it to the photo. I don't think. I don't see him in there. But anyway,
I almost asked that myself.
Dennis didn't show on film.
He may have gone back to.
He doesn't see himself in mirrors, and he doesn't show on film.
Yeah. He may have stuck in the back of his little desk back there to do some touch-up work on some things because he'd have a little problem with his car and the qualifying. But anyway, so yeah, that's the group. It was 38 racers, like I said, ended up with, and you know, I'm not much of a competitor, so I was completely outclassed. I qualified very last. But with the magic of the help of one of the guys in the group. Oh boy, hold on. This is so weird because I can't get to the controls to change the setting.
Try to use the arrow keys on your keyboard. Maybe that'll work.
Yeah. It's not. Let's see. Maybe I can swipe it over. No, it doesn't do that. Oh boy. Yeah, the screen. Oh, let me do this.
Here you go. Dewan, listen. Okay, move your mouse a little bit. Okay, now move to the right a little bit more. To the right, not the left. A little more.
Oh, there it is.
Click.
Oh, I have it right here. I can get it. I can make it. There it is. Oh, no. That's completely out. Hold on.
That's classic.
Let me get it back up. Let me stop the share to get it right. I have to move it over.
Dwan, I got you covered if you want me to.
Go for it. Yay!
Oh, come on, you did good.
I didn't want to give it away. I actually cheered when I was watching it. It was awesome.
Yeah, so I won my heat, which was, you know, it's like getting a ribbon for 17th place or something like that.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Hey, if you weren't going to talk about that, I was, so I had you covered.
Thank you.
Now, Dewan, have you got it on your slot car box yet? Like, you know, like on the inside.
I have the little plaque, but I haven't posted on anything. I don't know.
Good stuff.
Yeah. It was fun. It was encouraging because I got a lot of help from Walt. I accidentally purchased a controller right before the NSR Nationals. No, right before the slotted Nationals, and it was.
How do you accidentally purchase a controller?
Remember, his wife, his family watches this. It was a total accident. Happened to me too.
I went down there with my SCP-3 in a wireless configuration, and he said that I couldn't race with that. And so I'm sitting there at the counter and everything. So okay, well, let me get another controller. I bought the controller, and then I think I texted or called. I didn't call Greg. I think I texted or something like that. So, oh yeah, you can just take the CRI out. Take the module out of the CRI and plug it into the handle, and it becomes a wire. And so that's what I did, and that's what I used. So I really didn't need to purchase the controller, but I just kept it anyway. So anyway,
but Dewan, you should take credit. You drove really consistently, and you did not deslot at all.
I got taken out twice.
Yeah, but that wasn't you. But that wasn't you.
Yeah, it was a very good race for me in general, and I have to hold it. I have to give credit to Walt for assisting in setting up my controls on my controller, and helping me, get that configured. That worked out really well. So he's a really great guy.
So Dewan, Walt got a car for you, and you won, and Walt got a car for Rick Joachim, and he didn't. Just saying.
Got Rick's car and Rick got the one. So I'm so curious. I forgot what controller did you accidentally buy? Was it like their super fancy?
It was the Falco. The Falco. Yeah. So,
good controllers.
Yeah, and I like my SCP, and then afterwards I went and looked at your video and found all the cross comparisons and everything, and there's a lot more features and options. I have two SCP-3s. I'm going to get another one or two more because I want the wireless controller feature anyway. So that's a key. All right, that's pretty much club corner.
As much as I love the SCP, controllers are a personal choice. Lots of controllers have lots and lots of options. If you spend $500 on some whatever thing with tons and tons of knobs and switches, you still got to learn what they do and how to make use of them.
Yeah, that's more. My track was so small that I didn't really have I don't get the opportunity to tune the controller the way I really need to tune it.
And that's why most of the time when somebody asks for what controller they should buy, I just say, look, just get a basic 2-knob controller. Sensitivity, brakes, that's really all you need. Professor Motor, DeFalco, DS, they all make reasonably priced 2-knob controllers. That's all you need. Or you can get an SCP or a DeFalco or a Third Eye or whatever. Yeah. All right, good stuff, Dewan. Good job. Good job.
That's the fact that Ian won again. So
did he win again?
He slaughtered everyone. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Dewan. Let's move on a little bit. And Lenny has his hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Broke.
Yep, I'm coming. Are we right? Okay, so we had our annual Spitfire 500 a couple of weeks back. And there's all the worthies in the shed. I don't know who that bloke in the front is. He seemed to be able to photobomb it. But they're all there except one. He was a bit camera shy, so he didn't front for the photo. So
he looks crazy.
Yeah. So there was 7 teams in the end. So we had 14 people competing. And we set up a little park Ferme area. The cars in front were what we call the A car, and the car behind was the B car. So it's the reserve car. There is a penalty involved with that. If you swap over to your B car, you lose a lap. You actually get put on in front of the lap counter, and you've got to do a lap before you can start scoring again. So,
that's not much of a penalty, is it?
Sorry,
I don't think that's very much of a penalty.
Well, I used to have a minute. No, sorry, 30 second. It's 30-second penalty, but they all complained about that. So it's just a lap now. We don't race for sheep stations, Wayne. It actually is a deterrent because every time they swap back, they lose a lap. So they fix their A car up and they put it back on, they lose another lap. So Anyway, there's the results. Not sure you can see them too clearly, but Team AMR won. That being myself and Jason.
Probably zoom in if you want.
Sorry,
enlarge it. Zoom in. Yeah, use the wheel on your mouse, or use.
Oh, look at that! There you go. Yeah, so Team AMR won, being myself and Jason. We were old racers from the old Adelaide Miniature Raceway, so we team up as AMR. Followed by the Barossa boys. That was Max and Ian. Max lives in the Barossa Valley, great wine growing area in South Australia, so they called themselves Team Barossa. Then Team Slag, that being Steve Lambert and Andrew Green. And then fourth was Team Bugger. That name was a bit awkward to handle with, but we got through it. Team Happy was Norm and Callum. They just went in it for fun. They always have a good time. Dark Side, their previous winners, Chris and John. And we had one team from outside the group, which was Team Wart, which is West Adelaide Raceway team, being Mike and Jeff. Jeff was one of our regular guys. He filled in because their guy didn't make it. So let's get back to here. So we'll start with some trophy presentations. There's third place. That's Andrew and Steve. The Coke cans were a side bet with the Team Happy guys. They have a little side bet. Whoever wins out of the two, they have to buy a can of Coke. So that's what the cans are about there. Second place.
Those shirts are dapper. Those shirts are dapper. I just love them, and I want one.
Yeah, they're one of the V8 supercar teams. I'm trying to think who it is. It's Team 18, which is not James Courtney, Mark Winterbottom, or Frosty as his nickname is. Winterbottom, Frosty ass. So
put me down for a 3XL.
There's Max and Ian. Ian never looks very happy when he's having his photo taken, so he's a bit camera shy. So they got second place, and then third place is Jason and myself. First place, I mean. And then there's the podium. So it was dominated by Lola's. The first three were Lola's, and then a fourth place was a Reynard, Spirit Reynard, I think, or slotting. Slotting plus Reynard. Then a Scale Auto Toyota, a Scale Auto. What are they called? And then last place was a Porsche 911 GT 1.
Did everyone get their A cars to run the whole distance?
Yes, we did. These three. The only one that really there was two changes. The GD1 and the Reynard. Everybody else ran full distance, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
Maybe the Radical was changed as well. That's reflected in their finishing positions. There was a bit of a cock up. I'll go back to the scores. Last year we ran it with a breakout time to try and slow a couple of people down who in the end didn't turn up. So we ran it as a 6.1 breakout. And this year we weren't going to do it, but I forgot to take it out of the program. So we all had to run to a 6.1 breakout time. Unfortunately, Team Bugger, they were lapping well under the 6.1 for what the lead driver was. And that affected their times a bit, but they had some mechanical trouble. But they lost 15 laps. That's through the breakout, not counting the laps. But in the end, it didn't affect them that much anyway. So they would have finished fourth anyway because they had some mechanical troubles and had some car swaps as well. But I felt really bad for young Andrew because he's our best driver, and he picked a bloke that was a little bit slower than him. And his idea was to try and make up the time, but in the end, it didn't affect the results due to the mechanical problems they had. So,
bit of a bugger, you could say, bit of a bugger.
Yeah, a bit of a bugger for them. Yeah. I felt really bad for Andrew because he's a bloody quick little driver, and there's an imposter in the beard and Jason back again with the perpetual trophy. The names get put onto that every year. Let's go back to the scores again. I've been running around a bit in circles. It's called the 500, but as you can see, everybody exceeded 500 laps. When we first conceived the event, we didn't think we'd be able to break 500 laps. So the idea was to try and get as close to 500 as you could. But over the years, the totals have been going up and up. We'll have to look at making it the Spitfire 600 next year, the way things are going. But these cars are exceptionally fast, even with the breakout time on them. A few people got down really close. Team Bugger got down to a 6103. So he was right on the border, and so was Team AMR 6105. That's about it for that. I need to just get out of this because I want to. Can I show Excel sheets on here as well?
It looks like we can see whatever you're seeing.
Okay, all right. Let me find this bloody Excel spreadsheet. Where's it gone? There we go. And just change from the handicap. Sorry, from the Spitfire 500.
We gotta wait for Excel to load.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all good.
Can you see that?
No. Do you see it?
Yes, I do. Hang on.
I guess we need to stop your share and reshare Excel then.
Okay. All right. I'll stop the share and try again.
Oh, wait, there it is.
Ah!
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Reshare.
Okay. Oh, hang on. I'll get back to screen share again. Yeah, it's on a second screen. That's why. All right. So every now and again we run a handicap night. So just to give the other guys a bit of a chance, give Andrew something to chase. So what we do is I go back through the.
You're not sharing yet, just so you know. You're not sharing.
All right. Okay. Let's try that. Me and modern technology.
Love it.
There it goes.
Yeah, we got it.
There we go. Right. Thanks to your patience, guys. Yeah. So every now and again, we run it 4 times this year. I was going to try to make it every second month, but we had a few breaks in the season for travel and whatever. So what we do is I go back through the results and find the previous 3 races. That in this case it was Group C slots, and we'll work out the scores. So find the best score, their best score in the previous 3 races, and they go into in over here. And then so Andrew was the best with 103.772, and everybody else goes in. Andrew was the slowest with 89 laps. So, and then I work out the lap difference. So Andrew gets he starts with 0, and everybody else basically it's the lap difference between the winner and everybody else. So in this case, Andrew gets nothing. I got 2 laps because I was 2 laps behind him. Jason got 4, and Andrew got 14, etc. And then because we run it as a 36-minute race, these scores are taken from 12-minute races, we multiply it by 3. And then they get these bonus laps, and they get added to your score at the end of the night. So Andrew won it overall with 308, but Andrew Green won it on handicap. He scored 270 laps, but with his 42 bonus, he finished with 312. But Andrew didn't get any extra laps. I hope this is making sense. So
I think
as you can see here, the scores are pretty close. So Andrew got 312, Jason got 311, I got 310, Andrew 308, and then Steve 301, Callum 298, and Norm got 276. Norm was off scratch as well as with Andrew because they both got 300. What did they get originally?
103.
Yeah, sorry, they got 103. Yeah, so they were both off scratch, and then they didn't get any bonus laps, and everybody else got bonus laps. So it works pretty well. We had 3 different winners so far this season, and the boys seem to like it. Everybody except young Andrew likes it. Oh, and Jeff that doesn't come to these. Jeff Matthews is one of our regular guys, but he's not keen on this one, so he goes and races somewhere else on those nights. So yeah, so it's something different, and Yeah, so we're going to try it again next year. So I'll stop the share now. We'll get out your way, I guess. All right. Thanks for that, guys. Hope that makes sense.
Sandbaggers, I feel that one.
Hey?
I said it's one for the sandbaggers. If you don't do so well over 12 minutes, then you can stretch it out over 36.
No, it's taken over your previous 3 races.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So we find your best 3. We used to do a handicap system on another track, and even the guy that devised it sandbagged.
Yeah.
I remember sitting there because he had it set up so he had to sit on the start-finish line until your time came up. So I remember sitting there one night, and I got a 20-second handicap, and the other 2 got what was it? A 13-second handicap. So it's about 7 seconds. I had to wait there for 7 seconds. So the lap time was around 7 seconds. So I'm waiting for my time to come up. These 2 come around and go past me, and then I start my race, and they're driving away from me. They're going faster than what I was going. So that turned out to be a bit of a farce. So like I said, it goes back 3 previous 12-minute races to find your best lap score, and then so you can't really sandbag.
Just need to do it.
Got to keep good.
And the other thing is, I don't tell them what the class is until the Sunday before. Yeah. So they never know what the class is going to be for the handicap. Keeps them honest.
Yeah.
All right, I'll get out your way.
All right.
Thanks guys.
For that. John, go ahead.
Just a quick update on the. I guess you folks know that I'm doing a little proxy race, the Scale Car Garage 356 Challenge. I just want to let everybody know that I'm casting my little brains out. In fact, I just pulled this one out of the pressure pot just before the call. The bodies are casting up quite nicely, which is really kind of nice. I'm really pleased with that. So and that's the way they come right out of the mold. They need a little bit of cleanup, but not a heck of a lot. So I'm really. What's that? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm really, really pleased with it. And here we go. This is the state of my workshop right now. As I'm just casting and piling, and then I'll, put it all in a kit form for everybody. So patience for everyone who's participated, and patience for those who've ordered on top of that, which is really kind of cool. Thank you. So that's the quick update on the 356 challenge. Just thought I'd mention it.
How do we get involved in this, John?
Oh, I guess you don't subscribe to my channel, huh?
No.
Okay, there you go. So basically what I did was and again, on consultation of someone who shall not be publicly identified here, I limited the entry to 6 people because they assured me that if I actually got 6, the gods were shining upon me. And believe it or not, I got 6 overnight, which was really kind of cool. So I had to cut it off, but people wanted to buy the kits anyway. So the way it works is, and I'll do it this again, is there are 6 entries, and you pay $40 for a body kit, which also includes tires, wheels, and a handout motor. And basically that $240 US is put into a pool, and the prize money is split. First place is $100 US, second place is $50, 25, 15, and 10. So that's really what it is. And they go around our track. It's basically quickest lap and lap time for 15 laps on each lane in each direction. Lowest combined lap time, you win. So yeah, and being the season that it is, I'm actually covering the shipping costs to participants, and anybody who buys a kit. Actually, shipping costs is on me for the holiday season. So yeah, that's kind of what it is. And then now people are talking about maybe doing another type of body, and we'll probably have to do this again, because I really was delightfully overwhelmed.
It honestly sounds like you should go ahead and double your entry to 12, or and just
See now, Greg, I should have listened to.
You never know.
You never know. No, honestly, you never know. No. You never know. The next one will probably be bigger, which means the more people who participate, the larger the prize pool, the better the prizes.
Yeah, the more prizes.
And I'm sorry, but I really did not want to give a slot car out, because It's not like everybody. It's like T-shirts. Who needs another bloody T-shirt? Who needs another slot car? You can always use cold hard cash. So it's
to buy more slot cars.
Yeah, exactly. To buy more slot cars of your choice. There you go. Rather than those that are thrust upon you by some Canadian idiotic competition. So there you go.
All right. Thanks for the update, John. Let's move over to Big Dan. What you got today, Big Dan?
Quick one from me today. We had our last race for the year last Friday night, but I haven't got any photos yet, so I'll do that next time we meet. Just a couple of comments. I was also watching Mike's live stream yesterday, but I couldn't get any sound, so I'm not sure whether the other guys who watched were getting sound or not. So Mike might be able to clarify that. And the other thing was, Dewan, you may have won the race, but you were hopelessly outclassed for the Chameleon Award this time round. And I'm just going to... There's one of your competitors, Chris Snyder, who really dazzled when it came to the fashion stakes. So... But
it's California. It's Southern California.
Yeah, well done on your win anyway. As like the others I was watching and keeping the fingers crossed for you.
Maybe he's just a Donny Osmond fan.
He
just came from the boardwalk.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Greg, whether the others picked up on, whether Lenny picked up on when your preference for those shirts that were shown with the blue and yellow colours, but I grabbed that straight away. So
I figured somebody.
Okay, I'll get it.
Okay, folks, that'll do me, and I'll catch up with a bit more next week.
All right, thanks, Dan. Go ahead, Ed. Caught you off guard.
Yeah, I was finishing up a entry in the slot forum. A question that came up when I'm kind of putting together some stuff for autonomous, and oh, by the way, David said he would participate, and I'm having a dialogue tomorrow with Clive, so I'll pick up some more stuff. But one of the things that came up is you see that Scorpius and Oxygen do what, 20 and 24 cars, but what you don't see, is there an event that does anywhere near that magnitude of cars?
No.
To me, the biggest event I've seen is the 24-hour race, and what was that, like 6 or 8 teams?
16. I think the biggest 24-hour was 16, but I think more commonly it's 14.
Okay.
There was an event. There was a Scorpius event several years ago that I will try not to use derogatory terms for, but it did not finish as a Scorpius event. It ended up converting to an analog event. I don't remember how many teams or whatever, or how many cars was used for that event. But yeah, a lot of times the limitation is not the system so much as the facility. Right?
Yeah.
Because where are you going to put 24 dudes standing around a big ass track to race them? And then where are you going to put 24 teams worth of people for an endurance event? If you're doing 24 single racers for a small event, even then you're still looking at, we're going to put 24 people around this track.
Well, and you think that that's going to be super noisy with all those cars running. And then you look at it, because I think the last couple of 24-hour events in Europe, I think the last one was UK, and they're typically in the Netherlands or somewhere. I don't remember them being that big. There was like 6 or 8 teams.
No,
the Le Mans 24-hour is in a gymnasium, and it is a Le Mans replica track for 24 hours, and it's plenty big enough for the 14 teams that they do. The ones I think you're thinking of are like the Suzuka 6-hour. Or there was maybe another.
I've never watched those too much. I usually watch the 24, but I don't recall seeing that many, because I looked at the platform, and I have to admit, there's not great coverage, but it just never seemed like a big number to me.
Suzuka last year was 14 teams.
Okay.
And that was pretty cramped.
And it was at max capacity in terms of pit space and rostrum space, driver space. The reason
And
that
it's a digital race.
Yeah,
yeah,
oxygen.
Yeah, oxygen. Okay.
And the
Yeah, because I
reason
always
that
wondered why they picked such a big number, and I kind of came to the conclusion that the protocol would fit that, and so that was the default number. I could squeeze in 24, or I could squeeze in 20, and so the number became that number. You know.
Yeah.
the Le Mans 24 caps itself at 16, so that there are few available frequencies for any teams who are struggling to switch to.
Yeah.
As well as keeping the driver podium manageable. There is room up there for more than 16 drivers, but there is also, when you do the qualifying, you get choice of your rostrum position. Now, even the guys who finish last get a choice of which end they get. Most people go for somewhere in the middle, and the team that qualifies last gets either this end or this end. But there are facilities on the podium for more than 16.
Yeah.
But they cap it at 16 for purposes, for reasons.
Yeah.
But I think
that's good to know. I just never had a good handle on that. So thanks, guys.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've already talked to Clive a little bit, and he's working on some very interesting things.
Yeah, he has bigger numbers that we're going to do some talking about tomorrow.
Anywho, on a club corner note, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Go back here and share this screen. There we go. Not only not last, but honestly, against Eric, who is basically at this time, I would say our best tuner and best driver. That's a first place finish, honestly. This was at Russ's track, so that big, giant, banked turn one after a nice long straight, his wood routed track and everything. It is a challenging track, and a lot of times it's racing. So I got helped into second place by not coming out and not getting crashed out and other things. But yeah, we're racing our slotted DTM, classic DTM series. The JGTC were allowed, but I don't think anybody's running any of the JGTC cars. Pretty much everybody's running Calibras and Mercedeses and whatnot. I'm running my Alpha, which is tall and narrow and tippy, because Gary Skip did a fantastic Bilstein livery of that car for me way back when that was the very first classic DTM that Slotted released. And I decided that I wanted to run that instead of my Calibra. And it is a challenge to get that car around the track without rolling it over all the time. Especially,
well, I have to say, Russ is a class guy because he was last.
Russ is doing a lot better these days. I don't remember, I don't know how many of you remember this about Russ, but several years ago he had a brain tumor and has been, basically in recovery since then. His consistency has improved, and usually, in the last year or two, when Russ is trying hard and he's right next to you, sometimes it's better to go ahead and back off and let him do his thing, and whatever happens. But this past Monday night, he was doing pretty good. There was a lot of side-to-side racing with lots of people, but Russ was holding his own against some of the faster drivers and not coming out and knocking them out. So he's doing great. I'm actually surprised. I didn't even notice that he was on the bottom of the list there. I didn't think he would be there. But also our newest guy, Dave, he's getting a lot better and more consistent too. So yeah. It's like there's a thing going around right now, how to become a better slot car racer, and it's basically practice, true your wheels, practice, to run in your motor, practice, and basically all these things with practice mixed in. Practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes whatever you want to say. But yeah, they're improving. It's a lot of fun. The cars we're racing with stock tires, which I'm sure I've mentioned before. The C1 tires are pretty good. A little truing and gluing and doing our normal thing with rubber, and they are holding their own. Good series. We got a few more minutes left. Sorry.
What's your format? If you had, sorry, what's the format of your club as far as what you got? I know you do the This is crash and burn.
So Russ's track is when we race at Russ's track, it's a little bit different than our normal format. Normally it is crash and burn. You know, we race a minute. If you crash, you're out. Then we race another minute of those same people. And if you crash, you're out. Basically a 2-minute heat with a pause at 1 minute. Crash and burn, crash and burn. At Russ's track, because he likes to do the fuels, the refueling, we run a 3-minute 40-second heat, basically almost 4 minutes, and it's fully marshaled. So we put the cars right back on when they crash. Because 3 minutes and 40 seconds, you're trying to get as many laps as you can. You end up burning up a tank of fuel at about 7 laps if you're lucky. You got to pull under the light bridge and wait there until it puts your fuel back up to full, and then you can pull away and get another 7 laps. So fuel management is a very big part of racing at Russ's track. And the one thing that will kick you out of a heat is running out of fuel. So if you run and you're not paying attention to your fuel and you don't realize you need to stop under the light to refuel, and you go under the light on your last drop of fuel, you're out of fuel, you're out of the race. So during practice, you want to, if you're not familiar with the whole thing, you basically want to practice stopping under the light bridge to refuel, running a few laps and stopping under the light bridge to refuel. But we usually don't do IROC, we don't do King of the Hill, we just do 3 rotations of 3-minute 40-second heats with the fuel, and that's the whole night. So yeah, if you crash, you get put back on, but if you run out of fuel, you're done. All right. So, and yeah, you know, let me know when you're on your way up, and we'll make sure you have all the answers you need. And like, I would hope for any club out there, because I mentioned this, I said this to DeJuan, if anybody is members only, you're just asking for your club to die. You have to welcome new members. You have to be welcoming to new members. You need to answer their questions. You need to loan them cars. You need to loan them controllers. You need to make them want to come back. Otherwise, your club is dying. So EMSA is exactly that kind of club. You could come up with nothing, and we'll get you a car, we'll get you a controller, and we'll get you on the track. So don't you worry about anything. But if you want to bring your car, your controller, just let me know, and I'll make sure you have all the information you need. All right, so any other questions? All right, Wayne's got his hand up for 2 minutes. You got, Wayne, go ahead.
Okay, so I started to tear this car down a little bit. This piece of plastic turned into a bunch of pieces from a slot car. If you want to feature me first, I'll just show you this body shell. Look how bendy it is. It's not, I'm not even scared it might snap at the moment. And I hope you can see the roll cage manufactured in the body shell. It's even got the bars across the roof there and there. And the little bits I had to cut off were absolutely tiny. But I've done with the feature. I'm going to share some more photographs that I've taken from my phone. Share the
Wayne,
screen.
don't forget we want to see the chassis too and see how flexible that is.
Yeah, you can see that. Okay. So you can see that I took these during the chat. The whole thing, nearly 24 grams. There's the chassis base plate on its own, just over 8.5. The motor pod, 4.25. I think a slotted motor pod is about 4. It's very similar. And that's the body shell. And if you can see inside, there are some detail pieces in the side there that obviously go in that hole where the D key is. And I've left the wing in place because that's part of the finished body shell. What else do we see?
I couldn't read the weight on that.
Oh, sorry. 9.65.
Wow.
It's going to be wow, isn't it? Not much work to do. Obviously, there are a few doodads to fit. Anyway, we've got adjustable axle height in the front there. That's obvious. There's also some nice little wire grips there. Look, press fit wire grips. Now, I know that the motor pod goes in that hole that you can see that's nearest, not nearest. Yeah, the mid-height one. The front one is a body post. There's a hole, I'm not familiar with what it's for just yet, in the bottom of the chassis there. This one here at the bottom of the screen. And there's another tiny one just there. I'm not sure what that's for, but I'm sure that if I ask Yona, he'll explain. Looks like there are wire passages.
This one is probably for an LED.
It could, one of them could be for an LED, and I did think about that, but if it is, then it's not in the position that I would prefer it to be. So it's not hard to drill another hole somewhere. It looks like there are wire passages through there as well at the side of the front axle as an alternative. What else did I note? Oh yeah, I took this picture to show the little links that connect the body shell to the chassis, and one of them is just there on the control key, and one of them is just there at the side of my trackpad. And these were the 4 that connected the body to the chassis. I only had to snip through them with side cutters, or I actually used a scalpel. What else is obvious? The motor pod's obviously not there in that picture. Oh yes, what are these for? These 4 corners here, with the what you might call supports on them, are clearly for grub screws to come through, because on the inside of the body shell, where's a good picture of that? There are some little platforms manufactured in there. Can you see them?
Yeah, like Skill Auto.
And the grub screws, no doubt, sit against those platforms sit about the tops of the grub screws, so you can change your body shell height or the way it rests. It looks like there are some holes here, and I'm sure they're to stiffen up the chassis with some grub screws that would go horizontally, a la, who else does that? Scale Auto do that? I think Scale Auto also do that. I'm not a fan of it because I actually like soft chassis on plastic tracks. There's another one of the chassis from underneath. What I noticed when I took this photograph is the configuration of where the suspension is supposed to fit, or at least the motor pod screws. Clearly there's one at the front and one in the center at the back, very reminiscent of MR slot car cars. And these 2 over the either side of the motor are for roll control or other springs, shall we say. So it's a 4 screw motor pod, and I know that those screw holes are manufactured for a non-typical screw, which is one that I think I've shared in the chat before, which comes from China. It's a titanium screw, and it's got a smaller head. It's not as big as a slotted one or a Scale Auto.
Looks pretty cool.
Another one in the body.
Definitely looking forward to more information about that as you progress on that build. But for now, we are out of time. As usual, we'll continue chatting just about all kinds of random slot car related stuff. But until next week, everybody wave bye. And I'm hitting the end stream button, and I'm ending the stream, and it should be over.